this video, we are going to be making a chunky yarn crochet square pillow. As I said in the previous video, I'm going to probably start saying it at the beginning of every video, but if you are having a hard time figuring things out, I suggest watching the whole video from the beginning to end, all the way through, without working at the same time, just to watch the video and understand how it works, and then going through and watching it again and working at the same time. So again, we are working a chunky yarn crochet square pillow. This is one panel that I have worked up already, and we are going to work the second panel together. We are going to be using this Chanel chunky yarn. You can use any chunky yarn that you'd like. It will just depend on the size that it comes out. If you do not use this exact same yarn, or if it's not the same size exactly. This is a super bulky number 6 yarn, and they recommend using a 25mm hook. We are going to be using a 19mm hook. For the first panel, I did use one skein, and these skeins have 31, almost 32 yards in them. So for the first panel, I did use a full skein and had just enough left in the skein to be able to use to sew it together. So I would say this uses 2 skeins and almost 64 yards of yarn. To get started with this, we are going to just start with a loop on our hook, and we are going to chain 14 chains, which actually counts as a chain of 13 plus 1. So again, we are going to chain 14. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14, and it does count as 13 plus 1. So the last chain is our chain 1, and we are only going to be using 13 stitches. So we're going to skip this first chain and single crochet into the next chain, the second chain from the hook. And again, we are going to single crochet into that stitch, and then we're going to single crochet into each stitch all the way across this chain. And again, when you make it all the way across, you should have 13 single crochets. When you've made it all the way across that row and you have 13 single crochets all the way across, we are then going to turn our work and chain 1. This is now row 2, and the chain 1 does not count as a stitch. And again, we are just going to work 1 single crochet in the same first stitch, and then work 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way across. And again, at the end of this row, you should have 13 single crochets. With this chunky yarn, it is a little hard to keep track of your stitches, so that is why I go through and feel them for every stitch. And with this black yarn, I know you can't exactly see what I'm doing. If you have an issue with any of these stitches or where exactly to place them, I have video tutorials on how to do all of those things, and I suggest practicing with a smaller yarn first if you are a beginner crocheter. So again, when you get all the way to the end of this row, you should have 13 single crochets, and this is the end of row 2. And for the rest of this pattern, we are going to go on to repeat this exact same thing. So for row 3, we will turn our work, chain 1, and single crochet into the same first stitch, and each stitch all the way across. And we are going to continue doing this exact same thing until we have finished with row 13. So we will have a perfect square by having 13 stitches across and 13 rows up. So again, for row 3, we will chain 1, which does not count as a stitch, single crochet into the same first stitch, and then single crochet into the next stitch, and each stitch all the way across, making sure we have all 13 stitches, and then continue doing the same thing until you have finished with row 13. When you have finished with row 13, you'll want to just finish off your work and tie off your ends. And on this second panel, I do have 2 short ends. And again, that is because on the first panel, I kept the extra yarn after working the panel. And I just went and made sure that it was 2 lengths all the way around the pillow. So I just measured out like this. And it is just over the amount that I think that I'm going to need. So we called that good. And now that you have 2 panels, we are going to connect 2 corners. I'm just going to tie these together. I'm going to push this to the inside and actually pull this end into the inside and make it come out the first stitch as well. And then we're just going to go through and whip stitch this together. So now that our string is coming out of the bottom, we're going to bring it up to the top in the same stitch and put it through, and put it through the same stitch again on the bottom one. So it is again coming out the bottom. And you will want to pull it tight every time with this chunky yarn so that you don't break your yarn trying to pull multiple stitches in at the same time. And then you'll go through and do the same thing over and over, going through the next stitch, putting it in through the top, and then going in through the bottom, and whip stitching this all the way around, all 4 sides, leaving it about a hand size open so that we can stuff it, and then we'll finish it out. When you have a hand-sized hole left, we're just going to take our stuffing and stuff our pillow. And the outside of my pillow is going to look like a mess when I'm done because it's black. And it is up to you how much you want to stuff your pillow. The more you stuff it, the more your seams will come apart. So I try to stuff it just like a medium amount. And then we'll go up and finish sewing this hole together. When you've made it to the end, you can go through the last 2 holes and then make your knot however you like to do that. I like to just make an extra loop and pull my string through, pull that tight, and you can make one more knot on that string itself so that that doesn't come undone. And then you can go and stuff this right in the pillow. And that is what I do with this extra yarn. And if you get tired of doing that, you don't have to do that, of course. You can, I would shove some in there just so you have an extra tail, but you don't have to shove the whole thing. And that's all there is to it for this chunky yarn square crochet pillow. I hope that that was helpful and enjoyable for you. If it was, please hit that sub, like, and bell button and leave me a comment to tell me what you think. I hope you go on to create many more amazing things. And until next time, guys, I'll see ya.